Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. Today on the channel, we are talking about bugs. There's way too many of them. Actually, just kidding. We are talking about Starlink RV. If you recall, around 2 years ago, I reviewed the original Starlink. Elon Musk himself sent me one from his personal stash. That's kind of a lie. But if you're watching Elon, feel free to send me anything for review, including that Tesla Model S Plaid. I would love to get a hold of one of those. What we're going to be doing today, talking about this system that allows you to get internet anywhere off the grid, way deep back into the sticks where there is no civilization. This is helping people in the war effort right now. We're going to talk about the pros and the cons. So stick around. Let's break it all down for you. All right guys, so this is not a paid review. I bought this Starlink with my own money. I pay the subscription service out of pocket. Starlink and Elon Musk unfortunately have nothing to do with this review. So it's costing me a lot of money. So if you could, please click like, comment, and subscribe if you find this video useful. Now let's break down all the pros and cons of the Starlink RV system. So how the Starlink network works is that there are 3,000 geostationary satellites. That means that they track and follow the rotation of the Earth. So they're always in the same spot above overhead. There's actually a map that you can go and see here that will show you where all these satellites are so you can ensure you have good coverage. The great thing is that most of North America is covered, at least as far north as anybody would want to go, because beyond that, let's face it, the bugs are way too bad and there just ain't enough worth seeing up there. So conventional satellite providers have fewer geostationary satellites and they function at a much higher altitude. That means much lower latency and slower speeds. Starlink, on the other hand, has more geostationary satellites at a lower orbit. That means you get to watch Canadian Prepper in 1080p, possibly even 4K. So the FCC, as of July 1st, 2022, has actually now approved this type of technology to be used on a mobile platform like an RV, so you can actually legally use it in motion. However, Starlink does not approve of this, at least not yet. So doing so may actually void your membership and get you terminated. Now, hopefully in the future, they allow this functionality so that you could actually be able to have roaming, ongoing, non-stop, high-speed internet bouncing from geosatellite to geosatellite and watching Canadian Prepper as you're driving down the backcountry road. So in the current conflict, which is raging right now in Ukraine, the Ukrainians are actually using Starlink in order to coordinate their drone strike activities. So this does have much utility in a disaster situation, because when all the telecommunications, the ground-based telecoms are down, this is still going to be able to function. So it is very ideal for a disaster environment, even a war zone. Now the thing is though, is that countries could neutralize Starlink service in a variety of ways. They could take out the ground-based relay systems that are required for the system to operate. They could also just shoot the satellites themselves. Now there's a very low likelihood they would actually do this because of something called Kessler syndrome. This is the idea that if you shoot a satellite, it creates space junk. That space junk is going to keep rotating around the planet and potentially snowballing into a greater and greater disaster, which may well take out your own satellite. They could. The question is, will they? Now, compared to your run-of-the-mill fiber optic connection, this is not going to be nearly as fast. However, it's still very respectively fast. We can achieve speeds of up to 300 megabytes per second with this thing. Now, realistically, I've only been able to achieve around 200 megabytes download per second. That's still more than enough. This is going to vary between the hours of the day. Peak hours are 5 to 10 p.m. So if you're using it during that period of time and you're in a densely populated region where a lot of people are using satellite service, then chances are your speeds are going to be much lower. So with the Starlink, you're going to get ideal speeds when you have open skies, clear access to the satellites. When you have low population density, that is, not many people utilizing the satellite that you're utilizing, and when you're not using it during peak hours. Now, one of the great things about the Starlink RV is you don't have to wait. With the Starlink home-based system, you actually are put on a waiting list because, of course, there's a high demand and they can only roll out so many until they get more satellites up in the sky in order to improve bandwidth. But with Starlink RV, you're actually going to be able to get the service immediately. However, the service is not going to be quite as good as what you're getting with the home-based system. But one of the other benefits is that you can also pause your service. So one of the gripes I had with Starlink before is that it's costing you, well, in Canada, $140 a month in Canadian dollars, $100 a month in US dollars, but you couldn't pause the service. So let's say you got intermittent connectivity with your landline or with your 4G service, LTE service on your cell phone or your cell network. You couldn't actually pause the service, so you were paying for it even when you weren't using it. Well, even though the RV monthly subscription fee is higher, it's actually going to be cheaper on the whole because you can pause that service during the week and only turn it on during the weekends. So you may be thinking to yourself, I ain't no city slicker, I'm a die-hard survivalist, technophobe, I don't need this kind of fancy technology when I'm out in the wilderness. You're probably correct. However, we do live in the information age, and telecommunications is a vital part of emergency preparedness if we're being realistic about stuff. That's why people carry around satellite communicators. In the very least, this is but a communication tool, which is going to allow you to not only communicate with the outside world no matter where you are on the planet, but it's also going to provide you more detailed satellite imagery, so you don't have to pre-download things on your GPS device. You can instantly get that information from the grid, from the internet, have access to all of the world's knowledge at your fingertips while you're far away from that same world. So this is something you're going to have to consider if you're planning on getting a Starlink, especially for mobile purposes, for an RV or an off-grid vehicle like this, is you're going to need a power source. Now, you can power it off your car's battery, but of course that's going to require you to run the car to recharge the battery and all the rest. Probably better to have a portable system like this to power it. So you can see right now we're drawing 24 watts from our EcoFlow Delta portable power system. These portable power systems can easily do 30 watts. Most of them will go up to, in some cases, 2, even 3,000 watts. So the Starlink may require a maximum amount of power draw of around 100 watts. That means that if we were using this EcoFlow Delta, which is a 2,000 kilowatt hour system, then we'll be able to potentially use the Starlink for almost 40 hours non-stop. So you can see right now we're in the middle of a very densely populated region for Canada, and we're getting about 113 megabytes per second download. And now it's doing the upload test, and the upload test is around 7 megabytes per second. So that is more than enough to stream 4K video. Now, the great thing about the Starlink RV version, that rectangular version, is that it takes much less power, about half the power as the spherical home-based version. It does, however, come at the cost of not having as fast of service and maybe not as fast connectivity. Now, the one good thing about the Starlink router is that, for one, it does have a decent range. It's around 200 feet. It has 2.4 and 5 gigahertz bands. The other good thing is that it is waterproof. So the ports that you connect the cords to down here, the cords actually have some O-ring protection, so there is very good ingress protection. However, the design itself, and this is getting into the cons, is I think it's too top heavy. It always falls over. They need to do this a little bit better, in my personal opinion. One of my biggest gripes with the Starlink is the actual design. This is supposed to be built for off-grid durability, portability, it's supposed to be rugged. It's a few of those things. However, it's still a very obscure shape, which is very hard to work with, especially when you're transporting this to and fro with limited space in your vehicle. Now, the rectangular shape is a big step up from the dome-like satellite dish shape of the original one, so it makes it a little bit easier. However, you still have the problem of this right here. So you can separate the base and you can separate the main unit. That's about as far as it goes. the base is this weird diamond sort of shape, so it doesn't pack flat and it doesn't nest into the Starlink at all. And in order to actually bring this arm down, you have to actually control that from the app. So if you forget to put it in stow mode, then you're stuck, you know, with this, and then you got to plug it into your power source, and it's kind of a pain in the butt. And even when this does come down, it actually sticks out on an angle, so it doesn't nest in there nicely. I just think Starlink could do a lot to make this a little bit more compact and portable. Now, I should add that the surface of the panel itself actually has a built-in heating system. So if there's snow, if there's rain, that snow is going to melt off, and it's not going to disturb the functionality of this. I haven't used mine much in winter, but based on what I've heard, people's service hasn't been disrupted even when there's snowfall, rain, cloud cover. You might get some interference. However, on the whole, this is going to function just as good, if not a lot better, than a lot of the other satellite services that rely on fewer satellites in higher altitudes. One of the biggest downsides of Starlink RV is that you are going to be deprioritized on the network compared to the home-based systems. They get priority. For myself personally, this is not a big deal breaker because I like the fact I can pause the service, and I like the fact that I have an off-grid comms capability, and I can actually move this around. Unlike my other Starlink system, if I went beyond 30 miles from my home, it would not work. This, I can basically go anywhere in North America and have access to the internet, have access as a means of communication with the outside world. I don't need to be streaming 8K out there when I'm in the backcountry. This is strictly for emergency purposes, and let's face it, probably some glamping purposes as well. But that was really the main drawback of the Starlink RV service, but I'm hoping in the future they're going to make up for it by allowing us to actually use this while the vehicle is within motion. Now, we're going to need a different type of design that's slightly more aerodynamic in order for that to work effectively, because right now I don't think I want to be barreling down the road in my Tundra with this thing at 110 kilometers an hour, or if I'm in the Tesla, maybe 150 miles an hour. So my final assessment of the Starlink service is it's a 10 out of 10. I mean, you can complain about the price point, you can complain about the limited functionality, you can complain about the urbanite metrosexual design of the thing, okay? But you have to keep in mind that 5 years ago, this was not technically possible. There wasn't 3,000 satellites in low Earth orbit that allowed us to stream high definition video services from anywhere on the planet. I mean, don't be an entitled little you-know-what. Respect the technology for what it is. That doesn't mean it's for everybody. It's not going to be within everybody's price range. I totally understand that, but I do think that someday, hopefully, the price will come down, the service will improve. And guys, if you're looking for a comm system for World War III that will at least function, maybe in some areas, for the first few weeks afterwards, then this might be the only actual solution aside ham radio and amateur style radio bands. Let me know what you guys think about the Starlink system in the comment section below. Do you want more information about off-grid comms? Go and check out the video that we did on the topic from last year. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Canadian Prepper out.
The best way to support this channel is to support yourself by gearing up at CanadianPreparedness.com, where you'll find high-quality survival gear at the best prices, no junk, and no gimmicks. Use discount code PREPPINGGEAR for 10% off. Don't forget, the strong survive, but the prepared thrive. Stay safe.